Hey, hello everybody. Good afternoon. Namaskar. Here we are with another interactive session, and we have the very amazing, the very talented, the very popular Tillotama Shome with us. I mean, she's definitely carved a special niche for herself with such memorable characters and such amazing plots, such gripping stories. And we are so glad that we are here with her on Kavya Varsha. So thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. Welcome. I hope I'm audible.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really delighted.
Thank you so much. We are so glad and we're so grateful to have you. Okay. Jumping straight into the questions, let's please start
Right.
from the start. Let's
Yeah.
begin by asking you, how did this journey begin and how difficult was it to make into such an unconventional field of career? I mean, you're from a defense background, so how did this all start?
Um, well, it all began in theater in an auditorium in Lady Shri Ram College. I had it was my first year. It was the very beginning of things and an exciting adventure college. And I walked in into the auditorium, which is like a dark womb, and an exciting space full of possibilities. And I saw Piyush Mishra enact a one-man show where he played various characters and with great ease and um, great facility and command over his craft. And I looked at him and I thought, my goodness, what kind of human beings are these? I can barely talk to, another person because I'm so introverted. Uh, and here there are human beings who are not only confident about performing in front of people, but it goes beyond performance. It is having a deep sense of empathy that you can play so many characters. Of course, there's craft and there's practice and there's technique, but I was really blown away by that. And actually, that planted a seed. That's how it all started. That if I can do this, I can do anything because it felt impossible. It felt really impossible. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so how difficult was it to get into the industry really, and choosing such an unconventional field? How did your family react initially?
Well, I don't know if you can call it getting into the industry happened much later. I mean, I
Right.
started doing theater and then after college, I joined a theater company called Asmita, which was in Mandi House, uh, where I was really new, and there were many experienced actors, like the wonderful Deepak Dobria, Shalini Bhatt, Shilpa Shukla. They were all my seniors, and and yeah, and I went there and I realized that actually I come from a Bengali home where we speak in Bangla or in English. And Delhi, I came to Delhi in class seventh, and I used to just write Bengali in Devanagari script basically, and somehow managed to pass. My Hindi
Oh,
wasn't that great. Uh, but I mean, you join a Hindi theater company. But I decided to join a Hindi theater company because I realized that if I really want to act in India, I need to have command over this language, which is really not spoken in my home. So, whenever you want to do something and you know that it's impossible, then you might as well throw yourself in the deep end. So I decided rather than joining an English theater company, which I know it anyway, and I was studying English literature. You might as well study something. You might as well, when you're pursuing a passion, you might as well do something you really love, not because of anything else, no. So I chose to be part of the theater company, and it was wonderful to observe and learn from such incredible actors. And but it was also very demotivating to be the worst in the class, uh, to be the person who has to read the script like 100 times in the privacy of her home before she can speak those lines with
right.
confidence. Forget emoting it, forget even performance. For me, the language itself was such a barrier. that it was quite nerve wracking, and it was often like I came back home very demotivated. I did it for a year, every day, including like Sundays, and it was, but these experiences kind of add up, and they kind of form some sort of foundation. Because I really do believe that this, if my life and our career is like a building, we are very concerned with how the building looks, how much space it has, where is its location, but we don't are not so concerned about how deep is the foundation of that building, so that it can sustain an earthquake, so that it can sustain the winds of change, so that it can sustain rejection and humiliation and not being accepted. It's a performing arts. It takes time. It's a competitive industry like any other industry. So I'm really glad that I went through that 1 year of feeling like I'll always be at the back of the class. I'll never be someone who's shining. And I think it was important to go through that experience, because after that experience, I decided to actually, because by the time I started acting, I lost my stammer, and uh, and I realized that something very magical had happened, something therapeutic had happened in the act of performance. I had lost, a speech disorder that I was very conscious of for a very long time, and I realized that there's something therapeutic about acting, and I started. Those days we didn't have internets,
Yeah.
laptops in our home, and cell phones to just check something. You had to make a trip to a cyber cafe, wait patiently for your turn to come, and I remember looking at drama therapy, and I realized, my goodness, there are courses available, people who've studied. So what happened to me was not something that just happened to me alone. There's an entire pedagogy that supports this kind of using drama for therapy, and I decided I wanted to go and study, and I applied for a scholarship, and I got through NYU, and I studied there. So I really do feel that, and before I could go to NYU, and while I was doing this whole process, it was a long process to be able to, when you come from a middle class family, you don't just get to go, choose, चलो आज मुझे हार्वर्ड जाके पढ़ना है, और चलो न्यूयॉर्क
Right.
यूनिवर्सिटी पढ़ते हैं. It's like a proper, like, it took me 6 years from the day I decided to when I went, saving up money for your GRE, for your TOEFL, studying for it along with your college, and along with your doing your theater after college hours, coming back home late in the night, holding on to jobs,
Right.
so that we can support one's interests. And my parents are very, very supportive. To answer your question, which I didn't answer, they were
Of
very,
course.
very supportive as long as I was sure that that this is what I wanted to do. So I never took their support for granted, because we come from my father was an Air Force officer, and is
Yes.
an ex Air Force officer now, and so I knew that, like, I had to be financially independent. So I never took it as, like, I never dropped out of college and pursued acting, so that my parents would take care of you know, my passion and my hobby. And I made sure that I was doing not causing them any worry. Not that they were worried, but they said, do what you want, uh, you know. Um, so I did what I wanted. I studied, I did my degree, I went for my second master's, and so that I didn't have to, like, I think independence. I think having an education that one can fall back upon, that forms one's spine, was very important. And so while I was in the going to start my master's in English literature, and I had gotten out of the theater company, um, is when Monsoon Wedding happened. And the great success of Monsoon Wedding made many people advise me that I should not think about going abroad and studying, but I should actually come to Bombay and pursue a career in acting. But I decided not to do that. I, I decided that no, I really want to study. Actually, I want to know what happened to me. I want to know how it helped me. I want to understand you know, and I'd like to do that, and I'd like to see if I can use that to help in any way and to learn. And I'm really glad I did it, because yeah, I mean, what I learned in the creative arts team, the company that I joined after I graduated from NYU, and got a chance to work at Rikers Island, which is a high security prison. What I learned from there became I think my greatest acting school was actually not in any theater company. It was not in any acting school. It was not at NYU. It was at Rikers Island, because watching them, the inmates there, serving time, uh, made me understand that after all, what is performance? What is acting? A film. You in a film, you watch a film and you experience time in a certain way. A filmmaker makes you experience a particular. You can experience years in 2 hours, like 10 years
Right.
in 2 years, one day in 2 hours, 2.5 hours. What are they doing? They're making you experience time in a certain way, so in order for us to feel something, right? And in prison, you're serving time. So being able to
Yes.
observe that was in really I knew it even when I was there, and in hindsight it just became clearer and clearer that that was really the best acting school.
I don't know if you realize this, but it's a beautiful trajectory. The things you've gone through, I mean, it's beautiful.
It's
Really, it's
long.
beautiful.
I really feel when I'm talking to young people, like you realize, oh man, itne saal ho gaye hain, you know. I think that's when one realizes it. But I think when you're young, you're just so hungry to do everything. You just pack everything in. And so, which is why, 20 years later, you will be talking about how much you did, and it's unbelievable.
Oh.
No, it's true. I think I really think, you hear it so much that our time as a young person is so short-lived, and yet when we are young, we think we have so much time. Uh,
Oh yes.
but but I mean I feel like I was working, I was editing children's fiction, I was doing a bachelor's,
Right.
I was yeah, there was so much going on, and I was finishing college, then going to theater, then coming back in the night editing fiction, uh, and like reading great books. And I had encountered Buddhism when I was a Buddhist philosophy, and my mentor Daisaku Ikeda when I was 17. And when I read about his life and the practice of Buddhism, and it made me realize that the all the limitations, which I still feel, there are many, many mental limitations, but at 17, I was so full of doubt, because I was not one of the students who, like, how there's your classmates in school who are really good at either playing the guitar, or they're really good at dancing, or they're really good in their studies, or they're great
Right.
singer. I didn't have anything. I didn't even have good handwriting. So when you're part of a system that focuses so much on success, and that focuses so much on results, you start really judging yourself very poorly if you don't have any distinguishing qualities, you know, and if you don't have anything that goes for you. So for me, I really felt, I really did feel like, my God, and the reason I started practicing Buddhism was because when I read the words of Daisaku Ikeda, he said that every human being has a unique mission. If they could do what I can do, I wouldn't be born. And if you could do and I could do what you could do, then you wouldn't be born. So, I mean, this whole idea of an enlightened person or a Buddha is just nothing special. It's just somebody who knows that I'm special, and what I
Right.
can do in this world, no one else can do. So I must not waste my life, and I must not get beaten down by a system that thinks I'm not good enough. So for me,
Yes.
really, school was very tough because I found nothing. There was nothing good about. Nothing that I didn't really know what to apply myself to because I'm not good at anything. And I think practicing Buddhism really changed that for me. Understanding that I can do anything. Uh, Even if it means somebody may choose to decide, wake up in the morning and say, I want to go to Harvard, and they're there, and the next day, not coming from a place of, that kind of immense privilege was actually really good for me, because in that 6 years, I worked in a publication house called Katha. I taught theater to children. I did various kinds of jobs, and because by the time I actually wrote my statement of purpose to apply to NYU, I had already done so much. And I wouldn't have done that if my father could have just paid for me to, go and study there.
Right.
You know? So I think these are like, one didn't think about it so much at that time. All I knew was that uh, what am I here for? You know, what is my life? What is the purpose of my life? What am I supposed to do? I want to find that. And that curiosity and that desire to know what, why am I here? I think that question was what was propelling. Uh, yeah.
Okay, so since you talked about difficulties during school time and that you came home disappointed initially in your theater days, so who was that one person who kept you going, or what was that somebody in personal acquaintance or somebody who really inspired you, some ritual, some writer, someone?
There are many, that's what I like. I think in order to sustain one's passion or to follow one's dream, one needs good teachers, you know and one must be very careful of what kinds of even kind of friends one chooses, because the kind of books you read, the people you interact with, the kind of teachers you seek out have a huge influence on how you feel and see yourself and perceive the world. And I had great teachers. I had some great teachers in LSR who were teaching me English literature. But I mean, we were studying English drama. There were some, really wonderful Kasturi Kanthan, Anjali Sharma, some really wonderful, wonderful professors that I had, in Lady Shri Ram College while I was doing my bachelor's. My master's, I had professors like Sambuddha Sen and there were incredible teachers. They taught a text from like 100 different perspectives. They taught you how to
Right.
deconstruct something and how to understand and look at a text in so many different ways. Everything comes in handy now for me as an
Right.
actor. Nothing you learn goes waste. So there was not any one particular thing. Because I have to say, if I have to choose one particular thing, it was encountering of the Buddhist philosophy and encountering my lifelong mentor in Daisaku Ikeda, because in him I saw a young man standing in post-World War Japan at 19. The Hiroshima Nagasaki blast had just happened, and that's when he encountered Buddhism and how he went on to just self-teaching himself and this desire to contribute in a meaningful way while being extremely ordinary. So, I mean, he was a great role model for me. So every time I faced rejection or humiliation, I went back to his writings, and it really encouraged me a lot. And it made me realize from his writings that I must really must seek out wherever I go and from whoever I meet, wonderful teachers and learn. Because I think that's the only way to stay young. If you start feeling you know everything, then खत्म हो गया फिर और क्या, and I think
Very
so. It was not
correct.
any one person. It was many people. Like
Right.
Anurupa Roy is one of India's finest puppeteers, and she was my college Ramsock Dramatic Society president, and she has a huge part in me sitting here today talking to all of you. Many such people, really.
Well, I can just see a very beautiful evolution of someone. Since you're talking about this, I can just see that. You're creating such nice visuals,
Huh?
and
Maybe
and you're
you
giving
are a person who has that kind of imagination, so maybe you are able to.
also the literature student in me. I mean, I'm so happy talking about intertextuality and everything.
Yeah, all right. Another lit student. Fantastic.
Absolutely. Okay, so jumping on to the next question, since you've been associated with films which have been very content driven, critically acclaimed characters, and one can still see a difference between content driven cinema and the so-called the mainstream commercial cinema, and then in the middle of that ruffle comes the OTT platforms. So how do you perceive the evolution of OTT platforms today?
I mean, asking this question right now is like really trying to understand something when you are sitting smack in the middle of
Right.
it. I think there's no perspective, you know. So I find it difficult to answer this question. I think everything needs some time for us to understand. Also, theaters shutting down, the
Yeah.
the threat, and that is right now gripping the entire world has changed viewership. You know, we can't. You know, there was still a debate few years ago about how certain films are made for the cinematic experience of the theater, and how makers who make that feel so heartbroken when that all the work that they put in wasn't even, all the technical aspects are not are compromised in watching it on a mobile phone. It was not made to be watched on a mobile phone or a television. uh, but I think we've gone past that conversation now. Now it's a matter of the industry needs to evolve, right? Because the theaters are shut. So everything that we are making is going on OTT platform. So
Right.
and I honestly feel like I don't want to talk about something which is still a form. It's in an amorphous kind of form, and we are still grappling and struggling with in this new world. How to still tell our stories. So yeah, and anyway, the mainstream and independent divide, I'm so tired of that question. I mean, Monsoon Wedding is supposed to be an independent cinema made with a really low budget, and it became one of the most successful commercial films in
Right.
2001. So who's to say? Who's to really say? And I think there are uh, enough examples of those kind of outliers who kind of broke the whole. They're neither here nor there. They're films that the filmmaker believed in, made it, and the audience connected with it. End of story. You know.
Right. Right. Fine. Let's skip that question. Let's just keep that aside. Since it's bored you for a while, let's just keep that aside. Personally, personally, as a viewer, as a part of the audience, what would be what would be that story, or what would be those characters who you would want to see more on Indian screens? Like, what would be that, some sort of a story, since you're talking of loss of perspective these days? So, what do you want to see as a viewer?
I think it's an important question, and I really think we are asking ourselves that questions as we try to make films, in this time of such immense human suffering, which is just, it is mind numbing. So if I'm going to be part of a film, if a filmmaker wants to write a story and then take on the challenge of making a film is really hard. At least a minimum of 100 people need to come together and work in like a team, in order for this heart to continue beating. And so why do I have to tell the story, and why am I telling this story now? uh, I think these are two questions that are going to haunt any storyteller now. That what am
Very
I adding?
pertinent questions.
You know,
Very
why
pertinent
am I
question
making
indeed.
this? Do I feel
Right.
like what is it going to add? What is it going to give? I think these are important questions, and I think each of us will have. It's nothing prescriptive about it. I mean, each of us will have to find our own answers. Frankly, I don't. I'm not able to watch any fiction because I think life itself is unfolding at such a rapid pace, and there are people who need. I'd rather speak to somebody who needs to have a chat and or unburden themselves from what they've seen and heard in the day than yeah. I'm not. I don't experience that much pleasure from watching fiction. It's been like that for a year now. I find it far more therapeutic to perhaps listen to music or read a book, or talk to somebody, who are engaged in, just living. It's challenging to just be, uh, the crossroad that we are in right now. So, but I do feel like I think hope. I think hope is a very important for me. I'd like to be part of films and stories and uh, collaborations that can give hope, because God knows it seems like the most important thing right now.
We need it. We absolutely need it. Well said. Now, since we're talking of stories and roles, so considering the diversity of the kind of roles that you've played, especially films like Qissa and Monsoon. So, what has been your takeaway from these characters, and how have they enriched you? Some particular instances, if you could.
Huh? Well, Monsoon Wedding, I don't think like everything. That was my first film. It was my debut film, and what I learned from that film really was while I started my adventure of performance and acting on stage, I realized very, very soon that when I got in front of the camera for Monsoon Wedding, I realized that, oh wow, I really like this a lot more. Then, I'm not performing for live audience. And I don't need to project my voice in order for you to hear me sitting in the last row. uh, because that's a certain technique you need in
Yes,
order
yes,
to be able to perform on stage. But I would be talking, if I have to speak sotto voce to somebody in real life, because it's a whisper. I don't have to do a stage whisper. I don't have to, the camera sees everything, every breath, every pulse, and that's beating in your temple or and I love the intimacy of the camera. And when I was on that film set, I realized, my God, goodness, the camera is like a friend who doesn't take any space, you know, uh, and who's just there for you. And whatever you're doing, the camera catches it. Even if it's your back, whatever you're feeling, your body reveals it. And the mind and the body connection is just, it's the camera catches it. And I found an idea of another take. But I started my career. I want to say this: the idea of another take is not is, while it's very reassuring that you don't have to get it right, you know,
right.
you're only trying. Every take is an attempt, and I like that way of learning. I like that way of working, where there's no pressure uh, to get it right, because what is right? A film is only made after that on an edit table, where you have all these options, and then the filmmaker has an entire world in their mind, and as actors you are trying to serve that vision. And this whole idea of every take being a precious opportunity to try something new, as opposed to getting it right. I think I found that very liberating. And but mind you, I didn't start my career with digital, where
Okay.
having another take was not a cost. When you shoot on film, it's like film stock is really expensive. So the idea was to get everything right, though. When I mean right, was like every person in the team, every crew member has to get the light right, the sound, the camera department, the script continuity, all the actors, all the gaffers, like everybody needs to come in that 2 minutes together and work like one unit. Because if one person makes a mistake, we'll have to do it again. That pressure, you know if that kind of pressure gives you a kind of discipline. And but when you start working in a digital world, it's okay, we didn't get this, we'll just do one more. But it doesn't cost,
Yeah,
when in film that would so I'm glad, because when you work with very little, you have to be very creative. So I'm glad I started my career with film. So I think I'm very, very glad that Monsoon Wedding was shot on film. And, it's something that I will always treasure, that I had that experience and that discipline of working in that kind of environment. Uh, and Qissa was, well, it was like, I think if I had to talk about, that film was for me a film school, because I got to work with, I think, one of the world's best director, which is Anup Singh. And I remember Irfan telling me that you better not complain about anything in life after this, because you're so lucky that in your 30s you're getting to work with somebody like him. And I've had to wait for so long, you know. And I remember thinking, he has so much work. I'm getting work after like a year of film like this, so I don't even know what he's talking about. But I do realize, by the time the whole process was over, I realized that I really worked with an extraordinary director. And from that film and the kind of actors I worked with, Irfan, Tiska, Rasika. Um, they were just so poise, and they were really absolutely marvelous, and but really Anup Singh's process gave me tools, various tools from Chinese painting, Natya Shastra, Kalaripayat. I learned Kalaripayat for the film. I learned how to drive. I learned how to swim, uh, all for this film. I remember Irfan telling me, "What were you doing before this film? You didn't learn anything. Were you waiting for Anup to come?" And but really, that film was like going to university for me. I had classes from morning to evening, Punjabi class, then Kalari class, then swimming class, and then sit with the script. you know. So it was like when do you get an opportunity like that, when you get a film and you get a year to
Seems like
prep for
a
it?
seems like a personality development course.
Absolutely. And you know what, it's incredible, to get a film where you get to learn five different things, like classes. It was like really going to the University of Anup Singh, and I had five classes and I felt like a student. And I really feel happy when I'm a student, because all you have to do is learn, you know, and it's beautiful to be able to do that. And so I really, really appreciate that. And I think one of the most memorable, a transformative moment for me, in retrospectively about that film, was um, that this whole gender identity that we are you know is so polarized, uh, was really thrown out of the window and deeply questioned by me being part of that film. For me, this whole idea of what is a woman like or should be, how a man sits or should walk, who decides that? I think the social conditioning, the kind of um, the constructs that we build in around gender and its politics, and it really was smashed for me by that film, and I'm very, very glad for that. I'm very glad because that film taught me to kind of really celebrate androgyny, and celebrate the androgyny that I find in myself, and not feel like I have to play up my feminine qualities because I'm born of a certain, you know, uh, some kind of heteronormative behavior that I have to, follow. And I think, a lot of these things were very intellectual concepts that one came out of after studying in a very feminist college. And so one was already bristling with all these ideas at the level of the mind, but it really came into the level of the body in preparing for that film. And I think the loss of, I think I felt definitely a loss of judgment in experiencing that film, because the way I see people has become less gendered. Um, yeah.
I mean, we are more than glad to have such stories which question our own pre-built notions that we have in our mind. And we're so glad that people like you come together
Yeah,
and
me too.
make such
People like
stories.
that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so since we still have somebody in the comments telling how much they loved you in Sir, and I think any conversation is incomplete without talking about that film. Please tell us how did you, find this story, and how were you casted? How was the journey? The amount of appreciation it has come up with.
Uh, Actually, my husband, had started a coffee company, and Rohena, the director of a film, her husband has a pastry company. So there was a farmers market in Pune, and my husband was selling coffee, and her husband was selling cakes, and coffee and cake go well together. So they sent us
Perfect.
some pastries, we sent them some coffee, and of course the two partners, me and her, are the sidekicks, helping our partners, washing the glasses, washing the French press. And so we were just helping out, and she introduced herself, and we exchanged, emails. And a few years later, when she'd written the script, she sent it to me, and I read it, and I said yes. I read it and I said yes, because I felt that the very thing that the film was critiquing, I felt I was guilty of. of everything that the film was critiquing. You think you're really nice, you think you're sensitive and you think you're liberal, but the fact is that I've not dared to love across class. I've not even dared to flirt across class, and because it's not an idea that even crossed my mind. And so the fact that we allow ourselves to have such intimate relationships with people who help us at home, and yet can't imagine an equal friendship, yet can't imagine falling in love. And so it was uncomfortable. It felt like I had, felt guilty, and I felt that the way I can assuage that guilt and start some sort of construct a self which could start attacking and whittling down this kind of prejudices that I had was perhaps by starting by doing this film, and uh, and that's how the journey started. And of course, I mean, none of us expected an independent film to be number one on Netflix, or like to have so many people give it so much love. Like, it really feels like a dream to have, like, to all of you here who have watched the film, thank you so much, and to all of you who have given it and us so much love. Really, it's never happened. We've never seen our film posters in up on hoardings. I've never received this kind of I mean, the reach that this film has, bringing it back to your earlier question about the OTT platform. I mean, none of my films had released on an OTT platform. With and the kind of platform that Netflix gave to Sir was, I mean, the sheer number. I mean, it was a palpable shift from everything that I had done before. And it doesn't make the films I did before less meaningful or less pleasurable to have done. But I'm so grateful for a platform that could have such a reach, and that I get a chance, to interact with people whose stories, like that, people who have written to me, like somebody from, you know, uh, various places. I can't say their names, and some whose permission I've
Mm-hmm.
taken to share how they feel, like, about men who've talked about how they've written to me and DM'd me and talked about how they went through something similar in their lives, and how they were just shamed for it, and either he was sent away or asked to leave the country, or the person was fired. So I know it's touched a nerve. I know it's touched somewhere, something similar to how it touched me when I received the script. So we are all, the team of Sir is beyond overwhelmed at this kind of love. It's never come to us before, so thank you.
Well, it's well earned, and we wish that all your films do great in future.
Thank
And we wish that you keep pouring down these amazing, amazing stories.
you.
Now, coming down to the question that have you ever been afraid of being typecast in films, or what is your criteria to choose roles?
The script has to offer me something that I haven't done before. It should
Uh-huh.
excite me.
Right.
I should be able to trust my director, because I've realized that in an environment which has happened to me maybe just once in my life, where uh, I realized that the director is really someone who is the captain of the ship. And if you can trust and respect your director, and if they trust and respect you, then you can be completely naked, and you can just fly. I think trust is really important in a creative process, to feel safe, and if you can feel safe, then you can begin to actually be truly creative. So I think that's very important. How the person, who the person is, who you want to work with, has a huge impact on how you work. And having worked with such incredible human beings, you know, like, I'm spoiled. Like, for me, the human being now matters far more than the length of the role, and everything else. So that is a huge, huge criteria. And it should not be something I've already done before. And as far as the fear of typecast, of course, it was there. In the first film of mine, I played a maid, and every character I got after that for a while was, if not, I was offered, if not a maid, somebody who came from a really low socio-economic background. And it was, when you start off your career, you really like have to do it, because if I liked the part, I had to do it. I could not say no because, oh, I don't want to play a poor person again. But yeah, I remember, so 10 years down the line, I was like, man, I'm tired. I'm not rich, but I'm not getting to play rich people. I'm not poor either. So why am I getting to only play poor people?
Right.
And after some time, you start kind of feeling like, I'm making money out of playing characters that are marginalized, you know and it's all right for some time, but after some time, your own personal privilege and entitlement kind of makes you feel like, enough, I think I want to take a break from playing characters that are so impoverished, and to come back to a AC room, or a comfortable bed after playing someone who has to walk, you know a whole night to get to work or to get water. uh, it's okay, but it adds up after 10 years, it adds up after 20 years. And but I do think that, I think playing, I think cover in Qissa and playing a man, I think, after Anup cast me as a man, I think it just broke a lot of things. That, okay, she's not even like, I think breaking the gender stereotype, I think it helped a lot. And then Hani Trehan, this wonderful, wonderful man, cast me for, this cameo in Hindi medium. Where I
Oh,
got to play somebody rich for a change, and it was amazing. And Konkona, my dear friend, cast me in Death in the Gunj, where I play Bonnie, who is dressed in a beautiful silk batik sari, uh, and they offered me, an idea, a character which was, middle class or upper middle class, and that was fun. It was fun to play something which was not so intense, and it was really great to do comedy. And so, of course, I mean, there was that whole thing of, you know, um, okay, I'm tired of being playing these characters that are so poor, given that I'm not, and but it's not the case now. I'm glad that the roles have become far more diverse, and but I think it's like everything else, it takes time to seduce people into looking at you differently.
right, right. Absolutely. Okay, so since we were talking about how we are all in difficult times, right now collectively. So, how do you take care of your mental health? How do you keep yourself grounded and charged?
I like, it's been like now 23 years of practicing Buddhism, so that really I chant every day, and that really helps me expand my life, because the tendency I find in myself is, as things start getting really stressful, and as one starts facing challenges in one's personal life, and then witnesses the challenges and the heartrending stories outside, your heart starts sometimes just shrinking because you just are unable to process. And I realize that the thing that makes me happy, the thing that allows me to continue breathing, is being able to engage with others while I'm going through my own shit, and that has worked for me. That the moment you are actually engaged with, are part of a community that reaches out to each other, and you put aside your problems. You have to rush somebody in your family to the hospital, but on the way you talk to somebody who in whose family everybody has tested positive. Immediately you get a perspective. We are not alone having a hard time, and for sure we are luckier than a lot of people. So I think that is what grounds me in being able to practice and use this philosophy of respecting life and sanctity of life that Buddhism offers, using that as a daily practice to just expand my life, um, so that it's not, my heart is not shrinking with grief, uh, and the practical aspect of it is being able to engage the world, being not just caught up in my uh, me and my problems. Yeah.
We are so glad to have this conversation with you, and I hope that this feeling that you have, to this capacity to engage with everybody who comes around. I hope that this transcends through this virtual session as well. And we're so happy to have you here. So glad to have this interaction. So at the end, I would request you to, maybe if you could give a little message for our viewers, for the younger audience, and any views for our platform, Kavya Varsha.
So, I mean, when you guys wrote to me, what I understood was it's an organization, it's an institution that's come together that values debate and dialogue. And I think debate and dialogue are the pulse and heart of humanity, because I don't think dialogue is about proving to someone that they are wrong and you're right. That's not dialogue. That's a monologue. But the idea of a dialogue is it's really an adventure, and to be able to, and these kind of and a kind of adventure that can actually create change, because in a dialogue you actually have to have the willingness to hear another person's point of view without judgment. And if we did that, do you think we would be like the crisis today in the world? Is, and the glimmer of hope are in people, citizens coming together, right? And so I feel in a world which is so divisive and so polarized, is because of the absence of dialogue. So I feel what you guys are doing here, the heart of even the Socratic model of debate was not to prove that you are wrong. I'm only putting forward an opinion, and I'm going to flesh out that opinion, and I'm going to corroborate it with these 100 facts. But at the end of the day, it's only a point of view. Now let me hear yours. And our world will be richer when young people like you actually have the courage to choose dialogue over becoming, people with fanatical views, or who think only their point of view is right. So, I mean, thank you for inculcating something which should be the pulse of democracy, which is dialogue and debate. And please continue. You are our future. So thank you very, very much
Thank you.
for having me here, and for practicing this this idea of democracy by keeping debate and dialogue alive.
We are, it's been a year, and we are just trying to promote healthy conversations online. That's all that we bring forward the national level bodies, Padma Bhushan, Padma Shri awardees, just so that we can promote that kind of an interaction online. Thank you so much for acknowledging our efforts. Thank you.
No,
It's been a
it's very
great
precious. Only
interaction.
reason I said yes, because I think it's the need, the hour, and I hope you guys never lose it, even as the years add on.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
This was so pleasurable, so enriching. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody would feel the same. Thank you so much, and everybody, please stay safe. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye. Please stay safe. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.